Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan debated his challenger, Democratic former Vice President Walter Mondale, for Reagan's chance to win a second term in office. A quote from Reagan during the debate that many feel led to Reagan handily defeating Mondale focused on Reagan's age and experience over that of the younger Mondale, two important characteristics of a president that many presumed led to Reagan's ultimate landslide victory over the younger and less experienced Mondale. I guess it's safe to say that when it comes to weightier matters as to who the people might elect to lead this country, what surgeon you will allow to perform a life-saving medical procedure, and yes, even the advisor you choose to trust with your life savings, the age and experience of the person you select really does matter. And since this show focuses on helping savers figure out how to worry less about money in retirement, I thought it would be good to spend our time today talking about the issue of age and experience of a financial advisor and why this is a key ingredient to consider before ever turning your money over to them. In other words, how do you really know for sure how experienced that advisor is in the art of what I referred to as retirement planning? Well, let's find out why experience really does matter. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, still aging and all the more, ever more experienced retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before I prove beyond a shadow of a doubt why the age and experience of your retirement planner really does matter, let me introduce three folks in the Worry-Free studios who, quite frankly, are much younger than yours truly, but fortunately for me, have the experience to produce this show each week. We've got America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson, and our associate producer, Miss Meek and Mild Mary Beth Combs. Okay, assuming you're like me and worn out with the endless debates and mindless talk about the age and experience of our nation's presidents, let's instead focus on one of the other fields of importance we touched on, the medical field. An area of expertise that I'm sure you'd agree is very important when it comes to the age and experience of the doctor you choose to work with. In fact, just the other day, this issue of experience came up while I was visiting with a client couple in for a review. During my review of their financial situation, I asked the nice couple how their health was holding up, to which the husband quickly responded, "Not good," as he described a recent episode of waking up with chest pain. Knowing something was wrong, he wakes up his wife and quickly responded to the chest pain by driving him to a nearby hospital, luckily just a few blocks away from their home. Apparently, following some routine tests by the ER doctor, it was determined that my client had experienced a very mild heart attack, told by the ER doctor to follow up with the client's cardiologist later, and sent home. Well, apparently, later that evening, my client's cardiologist got wind of this incident and immediately ordered my client back to the hospital for further tests, only to discover that the mild heart attack first diagnosed by the less experienced ER doctor was not mild at all and would require a specialist to place a stent in his heart, a measure that might be proving to save this client's life. And of course, the age and the experience issue, once again, is very important, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. So what do the medical field and the financial field have in common? Well, while I cannot claim that an experienced financial advisor can perform a life-saving medical procedure, I can tell you for certain that an advisor who is experienced in the field of retirement planning can help you worry less about money in retirement. So stay tuned as I share with you what to look for in an experienced retirement planning specialist before ever turning your life savings over to them. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. You wouldn't go through major surgery without getting a second opinion, would you? Well, of course not. And neither should you blindly trust your life savings to the first advisor you meet. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for more than 37 years I've been providing free second opinions, and I'd like to do the same for you. To get your free second opinion, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Webster's Dictionary defines experience as practical knowledge, skill, or practice derived from direct observation of a participation in events or in a particular activity, the length of such participation. Unfortunately, when it comes to finding advisors experienced in the art of retirement planning, there are few to be found who, in my view, have boatloads of experience in retirement planning. That's because the field of retirement planning is fairly new. While I began focusing on retirement planning way back in 2001, most of the financial world didn't arrive to the party until recently, when all of a sudden they realized that 10,000 people are starting to turn 65 each and every day, which meant a whole bunch of folks who would need a whole bunch of retirement planning. Which explains why you are probably getting bombarded from all directions from people who claim to be retirement planning specialists. Yet, if you dig a little deeper, may have a very little experience in the world of retirement planning. But that doesn't stop them from trying to convince you that they do have the experience with buzzwords like this: fiduciary. Now, while a fiduciary, we're fiduciaries by the way, is a wonderful attribute, that doesn't mean that that person has experience in retirement planning. It just means that they're licensed in a certain way and they have to act in your best interest. The next buzzword you hear all the time is people saying they've been in business for all these years, or as myself, I've been in the financial world for 38 years, but that doesn't tell you anything about my experience in retirement planning. Number 3, education. Now this one's really interesting because in some cases I'll see people who maybe advertise that they have like a MBA, a Master's of Business, which is great. But heck, my youngest son Anthony has his MBA, but believe me, I wouldn't let him get near a retirement game plan because he has no experience. And finally, designations. And again, designations are a wonderful thing. I got my CLU designation back in 1988, becoming one of the youngest in the country to have it. But again, designations alone do not mean that the person is experienced in retirement planning. So what does experience in retirement planning look like? Well, it looks like what we do at Tony Walker Financial. First of all, we have a very specialized staff, and we'll be talking about those staff in just a second. But our staff, we have different departments out of our 15 full-time employees. In fact, we'll be talking about this. We even have an income planning department. The next thing is you get to meet with the owner. So myself, Tony Walker Financial, I'm the sole owner of Tony Walker, and yes, I am happy to meet with people in person. I don't think you're going to get that from a lot of firms. Number 3, our proprietary software, and I'll show you that in a minute, but there is nothing like this software.
That's a humdinger.
In fact, frustrated over the issue of all these retirement calculators not really providing a process through retirement is why I created and spent all this money. A transferable process. We're going to find this out in a minute when we talk with our own Heather Hughes. But when I die, not if I die, but when I die, this process I've created for my clients will be transferred over to a staff who will continue to be there to monitor your game plan long after Tony Walker is no longer here. And finally, train fiduciaries who are salaried. You know, it's unusual that somebody can actually sit under somebody that's done this as long as I've done it. And I continue to take a lot of time and spend time with our fiduciaries so that they'll understand what I'm thinking and how we help savers worry less about money. In fact, right now we're going to go to our own Heather Hughes in our Bowling Green office, and let's see how Heather's doing this morning. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Tony.
Well, Heather, you've been with me for how long now?
It's coming up on 16 years, I think in a month or so. So you might want to remember that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your service. So briefly describe your role currently at Tony Walker Financial.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm one of the salaried fiduciaries and taken on a lot of additional responsibilities in the last few years. You know, I try to keep the operations going in Bowling Green. Always follow up with people you meet with to see if they have any questions over the plans you present. and, just try to be of service of, to any of our clients as they need it.
And I guess over the past 16 years, Heather, I mean, years ago it was just me, yourself, and Connie Fortney. What would you say to the audience in terms of the evolution of Tony Walker Financial, specifically in the area of retirement income planning and the way we have grown and the training that goes into our retirement income planning, not only for when you came on board, but those who you've trained thereafter?
Right. Well, I think, in fact, I was just mentioning this to our newest hire yesterday, Juanita. Uh, I kind of received some really amazing training from you. We were in a much smaller office when I started, and I was literally an arm's length away from you, from our offices connecting. And so I really got to absorb, how you spoke with clients, the questions you asked, what's important to clients. And, we evolved that into knowing that a client needed something written down to take with them so they could study and understand their retirement plan. And from there, we started with some Excel spreadsheets, and then eventually that morphed into our proprietary income software.
And then moving forward, kind of as we conclude, first of all, it's kind of fun to go down memory lane, quite frankly, and remember all that. But you've done such a good job of then taking that information and training others. I know Lisa Allerkamp is in charge of that. We'll be going over the staff in just a second. But how does that make you feel as the person that would run Tony Walker Financial, quite frankly, if something happened to me, knowing that we've got all of these staff lined up that continue to take care of our clients in this process we've created?
It's really fulfilling, knowing something that you and I had kind of worked together on, and that a whole department has been built out around that now. Lisa's been with us, I think, 5+ years, kind of just studied under me on how to develop income plans. And from there, she spread her knowledge, through Leanne, and now TJ and Mandy. So it's really grown. I think they do excellent work. I still oversee a lot of those plans just before they go out the door, of course. But it's amazing, and I'm quite proud of the department that's become.
Well, Heather, we appreciate all you do, and in the meantime, get back to work and make it a good one.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, so let's kind of focus on just the income planning department of Tony Walker Financial. Heather Hughes mentioned this young lady coming up, which is Lisa Allerkamp. Now, Lisa, again, has been with us over 5 years. She was trained under Heather. So now Lisa is very, very experienced in setting up the income plans, and I have her in charge of the income planning department. So what else does Lisa do? Well, she oversees Miss Leanne Tinsley. Who is Leanne Tinsley? Well, she's certified in tax planning, helps calculate all the RMDs, helps put things together for Lisa to look at, and again, serves a wonderful purpose in the income planning department and is a valuable tool in making sure those income plans are accurate. Next, we have Mandy Houchins. Now, you might sit there and say, software administration, what is she doing? Programming or something? What is she doing? You'll see in a minute, this software that I've created, the WorryFree Retirement Process software, is unlike anything out there. It was created so that savers could visualize their money, changes that will come their way, when to take money, how it will affect their income. And Mandy is excellent in helping Lisa and Leanne with data input into that software. And finally, our newest hire in the income planning department, a valuable resource. He came out of the tax profession, but we're training him in the income planning portion. I know TJ is really enjoying this, but TJ also is learning how to input all the data. So again, folks, this is very involved what we do. These are not retirement calculators. This is an income planning process that requires trained professionals that are there to monitor your situation and be there when you have questions. Now, I did mention something about the software. This is one of the pages of it. You can see all the data input that we talked about, that Mandy and even Lisa and Leanne and TJ, and this is what Heather will sometimes oversee as those plans sometimes go out the door. You can see another page here, Derek, as the income flows out as you get older. But this is just a great visual. In fact, as we record this show on June 7th, 2022, I have several people coming into the office today. Guess what? They're current clients. They want to review their situation. The income plans will be updated, so when I meet with them, I will be totally prepared to answer any of their questions, usually in less than 20 minutes. That's because the process is already in place. So that's a look at the income planning department and what we do once we take on a client and take them through the process. When I come back, though, I didn't get to finish up last week something called the sales process funnel, and we're going to find out why that often stops cold dead in its tracks once you turn over your money to a financial advisor, and how it's only just the beginning when you work with Tony Walker Financial. Let's get the whiteboard out. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Getting ready to roll over your 401k to an advisor you barely know? Are they just going to invest your money, or do they actually have experience in retirement planning? Well, here's my advice. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a written game plan from an experienced retirement planning firm that has created more than 5,000 written game plans. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started button. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement Hour. Tony in the Trenches question comes to us from Sarah in Jeffersonville, Indiana. And boy, I bet I get this one at least once a week. Basically, it is this: Tony, when should I begin Social Security benefits? People get conflicting advice about this all the time. And all I can say is, really and truly, this is where experience matters. This is a good example. So let's take a look at what an experienced retirement planner such as myself will do before answering this question, because this is not a cookie cutter question. It's not a one size fits all. It requires a lot of thought process that goes into this. So here's some things I might ask this person who says, when do I take Social Security? First of all, what is your longevity? In other words, personally, how's your health? How have you been feeling? Do you get exercise? Do you really and truly think, some people say, Tony, I'm not going to be around a long time. I don't know. So you got to think about your longevity. That leads to the next question, usually involves your family's life expectancy. So if I'm meeting with somebody who's 62 years of age and I ask how their parents are doing, they say, oh yeah, my parents are alive, dad's 90 and mom's 91, and they're in great health. Well, possibly if they have good longevity, they obviously have good life expectancy in their family, they may want to delay Social Security for obvious reasons. Number 3, here's another one, marital status. We do have a lot of people that have come in for whatever reason are single. So you got to remember, Social Security is a use it or lose it. So if you're 63 years of age, let's say you want to retire, but you're thinking about putting off Social Security but don't have a spouse, it's like, well, why would you do that? If you were to pass away, it's gone forever. So again, whether you have a spouse or not has a big marital issue on things. And then finally, it kind of leads to survivor needs upon death. Many people get to retirement, and because people have told them maybe to buy term life insurance or whatever, then they get to retirement and they don't have any life insurance, they can't afford life insurance, maybe they're not healthy enough to buy life insurance. That Social Security is really important as to when you take it, because when, not if, when you die will determine the benefits left to your spouse. So sometimes, it just depends, again, you may want to delay that Social Security so that at your death, your spouse possibly could receive more money. Now here's the last thing. This is the big one. How confident are you in Social Security? I just ask people that. It's not for me to say, but we do have articles like this from the Social Security Trust Fund. Oh, it's good news, by the way. This just came out on June 2nd, 2022. Look at there, folks. Aaron, can we get some applause from the audience on this? Woo-hoo! It looks like the trust fund is not going to be depleted in 2033, but it looks like you got one more year to go. Okay. Speaking of Aaron, he says, chop, chop, we got to get here, get this finished because I want to go over this. All right, last week, in case you caught this, let me review it real quick. We talked about what's called the marketing funnel. And whether you want to know this or not, or believe it or not, if you're over the age of 55, you are in the radar of the financial world. You're in their funnel. You are called a suspect. Now, a suspect is somebody sitting at home minding their own business and opening the mail and you get a free dinner seminar. And you see it, you can't avoid it, you're a suspect. They're trying to get your attention and get you to respond. A suspect would be somebody like you. You maybe just stumbled across this TV show for the first time and you're watching it. Well, obviously, we're marketing education to you, but we're also marketing our services. It goes on and on and on. So all of a sudden, Let's say you respond to the dinner seminar. Let's say you respond to our call to action at the end of the show. Maybe you go to an educational workshop at a university or whatever. But all of these things, you got to understand, are being offered up by the financial world. The financial world, including yours truly, although we may want to help you as much as we can, we have one motive for doing all this and spending all this money. We want to get your business. And on the surface, that's fine. So here you are. You fall into the funnel, you've responded in some way, and now you're called a prospect for the services of the financial world. And what happens is, in 99.9% of the time that I see anyway, I can't speak for all advisors, you actually are falling into what's called a sales process, because nobody makes any money until you buy something. People are going to sell you products, they're going to sell you money management services for a fee, whatever it is. Somebody's out there selling something, or they couldn't afford to market to you. I hope this makes sense. And again, there's nothing illegal about it. The problem is, what I see is, once you're sold a product, in most cases, there's nothing else that happens. The process stops because it was a sales process. You purchase something, that sales process is done. They're under no obligation to do anything for you in the future. Well, here's where we're different. We erase that line, and we actually create a separate funnel that lasts all the way through your retirement. You know, unfortunately, we have a lot of people over the age of 65, so we have a lot of deaths. Just yesterday, our own Mandy Houchins notified me of a long-term client who lost her husband. Immediately, I called her, gave her my condolences, and she made that comment. She said, "Tony, you know what? I've been with you all for years. You all just constantly stay in touch and are here to help, and we're going to help her get through this process and help her with all these forms." So the process begins at Tony Walker Financial after we sell something. It starts before, it begins in the sales process, but it also continues long after the sale. So if you feel like, yeah, you're just a suspect out there, you're a prospect, but you are worried, maybe you've already made the move and moved some money over and you realize, man, there is no process here. I don't have anything except a bunch of paperwork, products, and statements. I need a game plan. If that's you, why don't you do this right now? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and when you get there, you're going to click on that Let's Get Started button. Now, your information is confidentially sent to our Bowling Green, Kentucky offices. We will contact you and set up what we call a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call where we'll find out more about you, and if it warrants, if we think we can be of help, we will personally meet with you at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. That's right, you can even meet with the owner of the company. I'd be happy to meet with you to see how we can put a game plan in place for your retirement. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this whole age and experience thing? Does God look pretty closely at the whole age and experience? You bet He does. Good stuff coming your way. Let me get a cup of coffee. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. According to Webster's dictionary, an elder is someone who is one having authority by virtue of age and experience. And with that authority comes the importance of placing your trust with those who have age and experience on their side. It was true when the elderly Moses led his people to the promised land, and it is still true when it comes to God choosing elders who qualify to lead God's people today. Notice in the many verses of Scripture that mention elders, God does not suggest choosing younger folks to lead on in the weightier matters of God, but rather those with some age and some experience under their proverbial belts. But it's not just age and experience that God is looking for in the way of leaders. Check out the other attributes of an elder that one might possess, which is found in 1 Timothy chapters 3, 1 through 7, where God reminds the people to select elders who are above reproach, which means hard to find fault in. good managers of their own household, not a new convert to the faith, and finally, someone who has a good reputation with the world at large. Sounds like the attributes one should consider when selecting a president, heart surgeon, and yes, a retirement planning specialist. Wouldn't you agree? You see, friend, who you decide to place your money with is also the one in whom you're going to have to trust. And all I can say is this: considering that it has taken your whole life to save this money you've worked so hard to save, and realizing that if God thought it important to put some thought and wisdom into the experience of those whom He chooses to lead His people, don't you think it only makes sense for you to take a little time and a little effort to be sure that the advisor in whom you're about to trust with your life savings has the experience and the character to handle your money in retirement? Just something to think about. Well, speaking of experience in the field of retirement planning, my name is Tony Walker, and for 38 years, I've dedicated my life's work to building an organization that uses a process that begins not just when you roll over your 401k, but an organization that includes 15 full-time service professionals trained in a process I call the WorryFree Retirement. It's a process that doesn't just sell you something, but it is there for savers through retirement, one that I created some 20 years ago and still to this day work to be sure that it is keeping pace with the needs of savers just like you. So to learn more about the WorryFree Retirement and how we at Tony Walker Financial might be of help to you, why don't you do this? Why don't you go on over to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started button. If you're retiring soon, maybe you got an old 401k out there that you're worried about maybe losing money on and want to put it in safer territory, or if you're just that person that maybe received an inheritance or has extra money languishing at the bank, let us help you today. Again, that's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or if you like, you can call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement, but you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.